Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon to those of you joining from Africa. We're just going to give it another 1 minute and probably get cracking 2 minutes past the hour. Okay, so good morning once again, and thanks everybody for joining us. Today's the third session in our 7-session webinar series. Today we're going to get a little bit more into detail. The first two webinars that we covered were very broad and kind of gave a total overview of the US retail market. And then in the second session, we delved a little bit deeper into packaging itself. So today I'm going to get a little bit granular into some very specific points that we refer to as a USP. So, with most of you being entrepreneurs, most of you being good business owners, etc., you really understand, what a unique selling proposition is. And I'm going to share a little bit of insights, both from our own experience, as well as that from what our retailers are actually talking about here in the United States on a continuous basis. So, you can kind of ask and kick off by doing a quick reflection. Have you ever really tried explaining what makes your business unique, and you just kind of get this polite nod or very confused look in return? I think we've all been there, right? So that's why today's session is important. And hopefully by the end, you're going to be able to have clearly and formulated your USP and developed a couple of tactics to confidently communicate exactly what is going to be setting your business apart. So with that, I'm going to start diving into what a USP is and how we think you should position yourself to communicate that across to your customers. So a couple of things that we're going to be covering in today's topic is 7 elements. There's going to be some phrases that you may not be familiar with. Don't worry about it. We're going to make this presentation available online after today's session. And then always feel free to reach out to any one of our team or your local USAID mission or any of the ATI regional reps that you've got contacts with. We all work together and we've got the same ultimate objective, and that is really setting you guys up for success. Because if you're successful, we're successful. So, we're going to cover an introduction to what a USP actually is, and then trying to dive into understanding the market and what the market actually wants. Then having a look at some high-level analysis on crafting your USP, some insight into testing and refining it, and then most importantly, how do you start communicating your USP across to the customer? I'm then going to go through a case study, which I think a lot of you will find very relevant, and then give a few key takeaways. But at the end, we're also going to have a Q&A session. So please drop your questions into the Q&A section in today's webinar. And what Sue will be doing is she'll kind of be pulling all of those together. And we'll try to cover as many as what we can. But we will come back to you if we haven't managed to cover everybody's questions. So let's get cracking. The intro in terms of the concept of a unique selling proposition. So a USP What is it? Okay. It's it's essentially the cornerstone of your product's identity in the marketplace. It answers the question, why should the customer choose you over the competition? Okay. Um, a USP is a distinct factor or benefit that sets your product or service apart, or the brand apart from your competitors. Okay. It's a pretty crowded space out there. Um, and it's going to, your USP highlights that uniqueness, that compelling attraction to a customer. So it addresses a specific customer need or solves a problem in a way that others don't. Okay. So it offers a very clear reason why customers should choose your product over other options. A strong USP not only differentiates a business, but it also creates excuse me, memorable or persuasive value statement that has got to resonate with your actual customer. That's the ultimate objective, hitting that target. So the importance of a strong USP. Um, the marketplace is flooded with choices. Okay. A strong USP is the deciding factor that tips the scale in your favor. Okay. A USP is super important because it's what makes your product or your service stand out. Okay. It gives customers a very clear reason over the competition, right? And it highlights really what is going to be that differential factor. So without a strong USP, you're just going to get lost in the noise. But with one, you're going to attract the right customer. And by attracting the right customer, you start to bring in that element of customer loyalty. Okay. And that's essentially your secret sauce. That is what helps customers remember you and keeps them coming back all the time. Uh, a classic example, a very quick example of a strong USP that led to significant business success. Everybody knows Red Bull, right? Their USP was it's an energy drink with taurine and caffeine, and it's marketed as a performance enhancer. Well, they really set themselves apart, and their huge success in marketing their USP as a performance enhancer created an entire new segment in the market for energy drinks, and they've become a global brand around that. So that was their unique selling proposition that they went to market with. So, in a flooded market, you've got to make sure that you can really set yourselves apart. So, understanding the market and the customer's needs. Remember, whatever you're trying to do, you're trying to fulfill that unmet need that the customer has. Obviously there is what we refer to as the have to haves, and then there's the nice to haves. So a lot of people, a lot of products start off as nice to haves and eventually then become the have to have, right? So to develop a compelling USP, you first need to understand who you're selling to. What is going to be driving your customers' target market? What are their pain points? Okay, and I'm going to be discussing a couple of relevant topics here just now on quantitative and qualitative data. But there's a little journey that you take. You really got to understand the target market. You got to understand the customer behavior, how they're shopping, when they're shopping, what is the actual target market, and do some research and design. Understand who you're competing against and what they communicating to the market, and identify where you stand apart and make sure that you actually communicate that. But then use data. In our previous webinars, we've highlighted the importance of data. Use us as a resource. We're happy to provide you with as much information as what we've got. A lot of you have got some really, really good data of your own, but use that data to make informed decisions. And that's both qualitative data as well as quantitative data, right? Run that into a competitive analysis tool. That then obviously helps you understand what your market size is and helps you run some forecasting as well. And that then leads into the next webinar that we're going to be handling, which is how you got to strategically price your product to gain that market traction. But using all of this, analyze that data, analyze the data, be critical about it. Don't rush to the market just because you think you've got the best. We've made that same mistake as well. Sometimes we all like to get a product into market quickly, and then it doesn't sell, and we don't understand why. And a lot of it goes around actually communicating to a customer exactly what your product is. And ultimately, what that does is it allows you to develop reporting tools, okay? And those reporting tools then allow you to make informed decisions as to what you need to change and when you need to change it. So to develop a compelling USP, okay, you really, really need to understand who you're selling to, okay? And again, I referred earlier to the quantitative data, right? So quantitative data is really about, it gives you the hard numbers. It's like showing sales figures, customer demographics, what your market share is. That shows you where you're working and where there could be gaps. And it also helps you to see the trends of what is going on in the industry and where you can fulfill those unmet needs. And it also helps you to measure the performance of your product when it's actually in the stores already. On the flip side of it, you've got your qualitative data, right? Now, your qualitative data dives deeper into the why behind the numbers, okay? And that's customer opinion, feedbacks, experiences. Nobody likes to get a negative review. People always like positive reviews, etc. Use the positive reviews to further enhance. And if you get constant negative reviews, don't take it personally. Take it as constructive and try to make those adjustments and changes. Because what that does is it really helps you understand what matters to your audience, okay? How they feel about your product and what they actually need, okay? You want them to buy your product, but they're only going to buy your product if they need it. So together, these insights really fine-tune your USP, okay? Not only to be unique, but also to be super relevant to your target customer. So your USP needs to address a specific problem or an unmet need that your target market faces. The better you understand what these pain points are, the more effectively you're going to be able to position your product as the solution. So a strong USP is all about solving your customers' problems. And when a business really digs into what their audience is struggling with, they can create game-changing solutions, all right? And that could be anything from long wait times, stockouts of products, difficulty in finding your products. Stores often move products around, etc. So by having that USP and creating that customer loyalty, you can make sure that they're resonating with your brand, which we covered in webinar 2, and they actually go back into the store and engage in that treasure hunt, looking for your product. Also, it helps you understand high price and unexpected costs, and then also when you've got product that is in stores that carry limited quantities, you're really competing in a competitive space. So somebody like a Costco, for example, they carry 2,200 SKUs. Somebody like a Walmart, for example, they can cover up to 16,000 SKUs. So you've really got to understand which target market you're going to be catering for, because that also helps you refine in terms of what your USP is. I want to use a classic example here, and it's when I was doing some research for today's webinar, I didn't actually realize this, but Netflix, as an example, in its early days, they were competing with Blockbuster, okay? And Blockbuster was all about, Netflix's USP in the early days was all about convenience. Blockbuster was, you could hire a DVD, et cetera, et cetera. Netflix was, you would hire a DVD, but there was no late return fees, and they delivered the DVDs directly to your door. They then pivoted, and they noticed that their customer had a frustration waiting for DVDs in the mail. So they pivoted to streaming. And that immediately addressed the pain point of immediate access. And basically, the rest is history. I didn't actually know that Netflix started off as a direct DVD subscription service. But that's an example of developing that USP. And another great example is Slack. I think a lot of you are using Slack these days as a key business tool. So it was originally designed as a tool for a gaming company, but it became clear that a real pain point was team communication. So focusing on that need, Slack transformed into a tool that basically revolutionized workforce collaboration, or that workplace collaboration. So the key is really understanding what your customer's pain point is and being flexible enough to be able to adapt to it. And that really is what takes your business from good to incredible. So, how do you go about gathering this information? Do some customer interviews. That could be actual formal interviews with customers, or it could actually just be chats with friends and family, and ask them to be critical about your product. Use online feedback forms, or customer surveys, or feedback forms generally from customers, and then pay special attention to your online reviews. And yes, you do get nefarious actors and competitors, etc., that put a negative review out there. Understand the good, the bad, the indifferent, but use those online reviews to help you make an informed decision. So knowing what your competitors offer helps you understand where your product stands out and how you're going to be able to differentiate. Okay, so everybody knows and understands a SWOT analysis. So you know what your strengths are. And then a traditional SWOT analysis uses the word weakness. I would actually prefer to steer clear from the word weakness and change that to area in need of development. Okay. We don't want to ever see our product as weak. It might just need that extra tweak, that extra little bit of development through that USP. So weakness, rather use the term area in need of development. Understand what the opportunities are, and then obviously also understand what the threats are. So what is your competition? A great example is Airbnb, but I'll cover that a little bit later on. But just generally, when they first started, the hotel industry had a very, very tight grip on travel accommodation. Airbnb spotted the gap. Okay, people wanted that more affordable, unique place to stay, and homeowners obviously had extra space and wanted to rent it out. So by tapping into that need, they created an entirely new market. Hotels couldn't offer that homey, personalized experience at the same price. at the same price point of Airbnb. So Airbnb really positioned themselves as the go-to spot for budget conscious travelers, looking for something different. So how are we going to help craft your USP? And again, this information is going to be online. So you don't need to take a lot of notes. You can download this a little bit later on. So now that we've kind of explored what a USP is and why it's so crucial, let's have a look at how we're going to create one. Think of it as creating your brand's secret weapon. Okay. Again, emphasizing that element of what is going to make you stand out from the crowd. So let's turn into that and let's have a look at getting a little bit creative. So as I'm running through this, think about your product, okay? And think about what's going to make people say, I need that, okay? So the components of a strong USP, key components of the strong USP is obviously uniqueness, communicating that uniqueness. What is the uniqueness? Okay. And is it relevant to your customer? Making sure that you know what your customer wants and what difference are you making to the customer, and then communicating that information to your customer very, very clearly. You then got to develop your value proposition. So what is the formula behind the value proposition? You've obviously got your product, okay, and that product helps the customer, okay, or your target market, and that helps the target market to obviously benefit from buying your product, okay, buy, and that's the question. So the question is how. That's your USP. So a couple of practical examples, as I mentioned: Airbnb, peer-to-peer communication through an accommodation platform. Apple, everybody recognizes that Apple, it's an innovative design. What they do is it's a user-friendly product, user-friendly services, and it's really revolutionized the technology industry. And then one of the big rising up-and-comers here that, I didn't even think of was Dollar Shave Club here in the US. It's a real affordable subscription-based razor delivery service. So, these guys had to look at how do they compete against the likes of Gillette and Schick that have got millions and millions of dollars to provide for listing fees and slotting fees, et cetera, et cetera. And they found a totally unique online marketing tool, et cetera, and have really, really cracked a dynamic market of direct shipping to customers. So, now what you've really got to do is have a look at testing and refining your USP. So when you've got your USP nailed down, that's just the start, okay? The important part now comes in testing and refining it to make sure that it really connects to your audience, all right? It's about seeing how it's going to perform in the real world and making adjustments and making those adjustments to be as effective as possible. Don't take things personally. Use feedback that is given to you constructively. All of us are extremely passionate about what we do. A lot of us are entrepreneurs. A lot of us are very passionate about what we've created, and see criticism as negative. Don't always see it as negative. There's always some, there's some positive that can come out of that. So let's have a look about the importance of testing. Why is it important to test? Okay. You've got to validate the resonance. Your USP is only effective if it's resonating with your audience. You've got to identify any weakness or that area in need of development, right? And testing helps you to do that. Prevent misalignment. Purely crafted USPs lead to wasted marketing efforts. What is the competitive differentiation? And then also it assists in that informed decision-making process, and that then ultimately helps you in risk mitigation. So, what you've then got to do is you've got to have a look at you pulling all of that together and gathering the feedback. Okay. So by gathering the feedback, what you're doing now is taking those customer surveys that you've been given, having a look at the market research, putting together the sales insights, um, and then obviously going through things like, your social media marketing, et cetera, et cetera. And that obviously then drives your profitability. So refining your USP, how should you refine your USP? Address the pain points, incorporate the feedback to, address any pain points or concerns that your customer has actually got. Highlight the unique benefits, okay? And sometimes that might mean that you need to just simplify your message. Ensure that your message is clear, concise, and easy to understand. Okay. And test and iterate. Conduct more market research. Conduct more testing. Um, that all helps you gauge the effectiveness of your revised USP. Okay. So that might mean that you need to update your marketing material. It might mean that you need to train your sales team a little bit better. Okay. Let them eat, live, and breathe that USP that you've developed. Okay. But also give them the necessary tools to help them communicate what your USP is effectively. Right. And then monitor your performance. Track key performance indicators, KPIs, um, such as your sales, your market share, your customer satisfaction, um, and assess the impact that a refined USP can actually make for your product. So we now get to a stage where you've now crafted your USP. The next thing is about making sure that the world knows about it. Okay. It's not enough just to have a great message. You need to communicate it in a way that grabs the attention and sticks out with the audience. So I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into how your USP should be effectively communicated across all the right channels to make sure that it resonates well with your customer. So the channels that you can use your USP, your USP is the forefront of every marketing channel that you should do. Clearly communicate exactly what it is, right? Um, and that includes using websites, social media, packaging, advertising. And the important element over here is obviously tailoring the message that fits the market channel that you're using, right? Keep that USP the same across all of the market channels. You might obviously need to adapt the wording slightly, but keep that fundamental message exactly the same. So, your website, you've got expanded space. Social media, sometimes you're limited to word characters. Packaging, again, sometimes you've got a limited space that you can actually put your USP onto. Okay. And then obviously one of the other elements is advertising. How are you going to advertise, and getting that information out there. But keep the message consistent. Okay. Ensure that consistency helps you build your brand's identity, right? So by recognizing the brand, okay, it helps customers associate with specific qualities. And that in turn builds trust. Okay. And once you've got the customer's trust, you've got that positive emotional connection. And you know, inconsistent um, inconsistent messaging is, it's one of those things that really starts to undermine your credibility, or it could create market confusion, or it dilutes the overall time, energy, and effort that you've put into in terms of your USP. Um, and it weakens your brand identity. So ensure consistent messaging across all customer facings. That really helps develop the brand style. Okay. And that could mean that you actually need to put together a branding book or a branding style that is communicated not just across your company internally, but also within your network internally, and also to your customers as well, and keep that brand message consistent. Make sure that your USP is clearly communicated on any channel that you actually land up using. All right. Train your team. Make sure that everybody involved in any form of customer facing interaction understands and adheres to the branding guidelines. Then, very important, the market changes all the time. Okay. Be relevant, communicate that relevance, and that might mean that you need to sometimes update your message. Don't flip flop, right? Try to keep consistent, but understand that at certain times you might need to change and adapt. Okay. And that includes as your product starts to evolve. So when you're getting this constant customer feedback, etc., and you're making updates and you're making a slight change or a tweak or something along that line, make sure that you communicate that across to your customer. But those updates to customer through the messaging that you're going to be pushing through to the customer, make sure that it's constant and make sure that it's effective. So by prioritizing consistent messaging, you really strengthen your brand's identity. Okay. And again, that all goes about getting the customer trust. Marketing 101. If a customer trusts your product, they're going to come back and buy it again. So winning that customer trust is what is so critically important. Okay. And you can maximize the communication of your USP, okay, through effective marketing and winning the customer's trust. So a real life case study. So let's have a look at a strong a company that really transformed its presence by developing a strong USP, right? So Kraft Heinz, probably everybody knows, who they are. They've really mastered the art of blending nostalgia with modern trends. They took their classic mac and cheese um, and let me go back one step. They started to face a lot of challenges in their market space. Okay. Um, and what they did was they started to revitalize its portfolio of real iconic brands, but they needed to connect with the new generation of consumers. And what they did was they leveraged the nostalgia of something very as simple as the Kraft mac and cheese that a lot of people grew up with, okay, and transformed that into starting to win those customers over with the Heinz ketchup. But then they came up with a couple of innovative factors, and those included, things like spicy options, et cetera, et cetera. And all of that came from the customer feedback, that qualitative data that they actually landed up starting to gather. But really what they did is they communicated their USP as convenience, okay, but tapped into that emotional connection. And what that did is it helped bridge generations of consumers, right? It kept the brand relevant from when you were a kid to when you were a young adult to ultimately now, where a lot of us actually are as the general, consumer, the people that are going into the stores all the time and actually making those purchases ourselves. So how did they do that? What they did is they obviously had a look at starting off with a nostalgic marketing campaign, right? The favorite ketchup, in South Africa, we call it tomato sauce, tomato. But, they were in 110 countries, okay? And they tapped into that real nostalgic marketing campaign. But then what they did is they then started to have a look at product innovation, right? So communicating an easy mac and cheese. So that was the USP, easy mac and cheese, right? Ready in 3.5 minutes. But they added to that the Heinz tomato ketchup, and then they innovated the bottle of the Heinz tomato ketchup by, turning it upside down. They were the market leaders in that. I mean, how many of us have opened up a bottle of tomato sauce and shook it, hoping that it's going to, come out in an easy spread, only to get a big dollop of tomato sauce out there. So they took that customer feedback and created a USP on that tomato ketchup bottle by turning it upside down and making it a squeeze bottle. Now, that initially had a small impact on their bottom line because they were only dispensing a certain amount of product. And what they did was, all they did is increased the nozzle where the ketchup actually dispenses from by 3 millimeters, and it increased their sales revenue by 30%. So they then also started to have a look at convenience focused packaging, and we covered a lot of that in webinar number 2, okay? But also understanding that, craft singles, for example, it's slices of single cheese. So instead of getting a big block of cheese and having to cut it to put it onto a sandwich, you can actually just use a single. And then also their individual little sachets that you can pack together with. And they are pumping the digital marketing space. Before, a lot of us had to rely heavily on print media, on TV ads, etc., and they were crazy expensive. Digital marketing these days is really the way to go. Leverage all of your, your social media channels that you've got, etc., etc. A lot of those social media channels cost you virtually nothing. You can do a lot of that content yourself. But as your business grows, consider investing in some professional services behind that. What this USP innovation actually did is it increased their sales, it enhanced the brand loyalty of the customer, it rebuilt that trust, or it kept that trust from when you were a kid all the way through to when you were an adult. Okay, and it increased their market share exponentially across the world, right? And it then got them back so strategically placed that the positive customer perception remains that Kraft ketchup is the best, and Kraft ketchup is the one that you actually need to have on your table all the time. So that effective communication and that qualitative feedback that they were getting enabled them to remain relevant, okay? And they really thriving. They just keep on getting bigger and bigger. So I know we're running short of some time, and I want to leave a little bit of time open for some Q&A sessions. So I'm going to quickly run through a conclusion and some key topics here. So as we wrap up today's session about crafting and communicating your USP, remember that your USP is more than just a catchy phrase, okay? It is core to what sets your product or your service apart, okay? It's the bridge that connects your business and your customers' needs and really helps you stand out in a really crowded market. So identify your target, identify your audience's pain points, and craft a very, very clear and compelling message. Test it, refine it, and then establish that communication as effectively as what you possibly can so that your USP is the powerful, powerful tool for growth and customer loyalty. So again, understand your audience's pain points. What that does is it better helps you understand the challenges, okay? And the more effective your USP is, the better positioning your product is going to have as the solution to what the customer actually wants. Make sure again, and I'm sorry for repeating myself, but really make sure again that what you're doing is unique. You follow that U in USP, and why, and you effectively communicate to your customer why should they buy your product over the competition. Again, test and refine the USP continuously. Once you on the shelf, I always say that it's difficult enough to get on the shelf. It's even harder to stay on the shelf. So test and refine all the time to make sure that are you relevant to the customer, okay? And communicate your USP effectively. Make sure that your message is consistent across all the platforms that you're using. Make sure that it resonates specifically with your target audience. That could be a health conscious consumer. It could be an organic consumer. It could be, somebody who's looking for a specific type of vitamin in a product, or it could be just somebody who's looking for comfort food. Just understand exactly what your USP is and effectively communicate it. But critically important is to keep it simple, right? Make sure that your USP is simple and it's easy to understand and it grabs that customer's attention, quick and easy. In the previous webinar, we spoke about the importance of packaging and packaging design, etc. Remember something, that a customer makes a decision within 3 seconds. That's literally all the time that you've got to ensure that the customer picks up your product. So, you know, before we kind of wrap things up, I just wanted to again say a big thank you to everybody who joined today. We've had, again, a fantastic response. Next week's webinar, we're going to get into some real detail in terms of pricing, understanding where your pricing needs to be, here in the US market, understanding how we can assist in strategically helping you with some data analytics, etc. And the session after that is one that you really, really don't want to miss. We're going to have some big time industry leaders that are going to be able to answer some questions and tell you exactly what retailers are looking for. So hopefully I've left you with some really fresh ideas today, and a little bit of inspiration to spend some time and crafting an amazing USP that is really going to set your business apart. Remember, we have compelling stories. We have great stories about the products that we do in Africa, and a lot of the times that isn't really clearly communicated across to the US consumer. So your USP, remember, it's about showing the world, it's about showing the US market what makes you awesome. Right. So thanks again for being here. I can't wait to see what you guys are creating. Feel free to reach out to us at any stage. Feel free to reach out to the USAID regional guys or the ATI regional reps. And we're here to help. So Sue, over to you. Let's see if there's any questions.
Hi, thank you, Gavin. Hello, everyone. We do have a question on how do you typically share your USP with retailers or distributors if they ask, as a part of a presentation or as a one-pager?
So what a US retailer normally looks for, or a distributor looks for, is a simple sell sheet. And on that simple sell sheet, we always advise to keep it to a one page, maybe a double-sider. Okay. And on that one page is what sets your product apart. Okay. What is making it different? Why should the buyer who's making the decision to put your product on shelf, why should that buyer allow your product or give you the opportunity to put it on shelf? And that could be a tag phrase, a one-liner, but that then needs to resonate into communicating the benefit of your actual product. Then put some attractive, put your packaging on, and on the reverse side of your sell sheet, you can put all the technical specifications, your ingredient deck, etc., palette configuration, and if necessary, put some pricing in. But that USP, okay, put it on the front. But when you're doing your presentation, you need to sell to your customer or sell to your retailer or your distributor that you've put thought, time, energy behind understanding what the market is, understanding who the target audience is, and you've done that qualitative and quantitative research, and you've created this unique product that is meeting an unmet need that their customer has.
Okay, thank you, Gavin. We don't have any other questions in the Q&A. We do have a gentleman by the name of Fernando who has his hand up. Hi, Fernando, you have a question? Fernando, you have a question?
Fernando's on mute. So I think you need to enable his microphone.
I have already. Okay, we're going to move on to the next person. Please let me know if I'm pronouncing this correctly. It's Boipelo. Boipelo?
Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Gavin, for an informative presentation. Could you please just repeat what you said we could put at the back of the one-pager?
So on the front of your one-pager, it needs to be impactful. Remember that a US consumer buys with their eyes. So if you make that front impactful and you make it really attractive, the person who's making the decision on putting your product on shelf is going to look at the front. But they're also going to want to know that you've got all of the technical specifications on the back, and that'll be something like your ingredient statement, your nutritional information, what your palette configuration is, what your MOQs are, what your cell units is. And then we always recommend that you actually put the UPC, the actual barcode, onto the back of the cell sheet, and maybe even your GTIN. So that's your case UPC. And again, Boipelo, feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to give you an example of what one of our cell sheets looks like. Okay, and you're welcome to use something very similar.
Thank you so much. I will do so.
I'm going to just revert back to Fernando to see if we can get him online again. Fernando?
He's still on mute.
Yes, he's still on mute at the moment. I don't know if anybody else has another question. Fernando?
Yes, hi, good evening.
Good evening.
So I speak from Angola and I belong to MVL Corporation. So I'm in the bus. I can't talk too much. I think it's about connection. So
Okay.
I really want to give some considerations. So I'm really prideful to be in touch with you. And I have one question. As soon we get that organization, And will we be able to travel or to share our products, please?
Yes, yeah, Fernando, my recommendation is, join our network. Doesn't cost anything. Once you're in the US ATD system, our retail activation team can really help, understand exactly where your product is in the 8-step journey that we've crafted out. And we've got a retail mentorship program as well, where some industry leaders specifically have a look at helping youth entrepreneurial businesses, and specifically have a look at helping those businesses that have got a really unique product, and positioning that in a format that a US retailer actually needs. So again, just reach out to us. We're happy to help.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Sue, I think we've got enough time for Harina.
Yes, I'm allowing Harina. Harina, how are you?
Thank you. I'm good. My question is related to what you've just answered. Is it possible to also get support for services instead of just products, or a combination?
Sorry, is it possible to get support for
services, not just products, or a combination of both? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so Harina, what we do from a US Africa Trade Desk perspective is we collaborate with not just actual producers, but we also collaborate with organizations and service providers, all within one ecosystem. So we all work collaboratively together to assist African producers, not just on product, but also on services into the United States, and vice versa as well. I think we can take Serena's question.
Yes, we can. I'm going to allow her mic. Hi, Serena. Hello, Serena.
Oh, yes, sorry. I didn't unmute, sorry. Thanks very much, Sue and Gavin. Gavin, I did exchange an email with you, and you did reply, and I've filled that form on your website. But my question is this: I am relocating to the US, as I told you that one retail in the US is giving us a chance. So I'm basically leaving South Africa to really establish this new relationship in the US. Are you still using, can we still benefit from your organization, even though I'm not stationed in Africa? Though I'm, originally
Yes.
from South
Yes.
Africa.
Yeah, Serena, one of the things that we do as well is we support the African diaspora. So I'm based here in Orlando now, also left South Africa, based in Orlando. But yeah, definitely happy to help out. When you get here, feel free to reach out. We'll get you around for a braai when relevant as well. And we'll help you hopefully become a little bit of a success as well.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. Fantastic. Thank you.
And I think we can take one more question from Sugen.
Yes, Sugen, I'm allowing your mic. Hello. Hello, Sugen.
He's on mute.
A couple more minutes. Hello, Sugen.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's move on. So I'm going to wrap up, guys. Thank you very much for your attendance today. Just want to really emphasize again, reach out to either reach out directly to us, reach out to our marketing team, leverage the support that you guys have got from the Africa Trade Initiative, the Africa Trade Activity, work with your regional ATI reps, If you are dealing directly with one of the USAID missions, work directly with one of those team members from USAID. We are all here as a resource to actively help and support your product to become a success. So with that, thank you everybody for attending. Really appreciate your time today. This recording will be made available online, and the first 2 sessions are already online. So feel free to have a look at them anytime that you want. Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.